Hey everybody, hi again. Here's part 2 of our 3-part series of me discussing Kelly Gallagher's book, Deeper Reading, Comprehending Challenging Texts for Students in Grades 4 through 12. Thanks for watching my video yesterday. I just want to remind you though, please comment on each of these videos. That's part of my assignment. It's supposed to be almost sort of like a book club style project where I give you a little bit of information about this book and then you respond. So thank you, Lisa, for your comment, and I appreciated it. Let's dive right into part 2 because today I'll be covering 4 chapters as opposed to 3, so there's a lot to cover. But then also I have some of my own thoughts about what I read in Gallagher's book that I want to share and I'm excited about too. So, okay, so let's talk about the second half of his book, and I'm looking at my notes here. I would show you the book, but I tried to get it from the library and they couldn't find it, so I had to buy it digitally, and I've been reading it on my phone, which is what I'm recording this video on, so I'm sorry I can't show you a copy of the book. But I'm reading from my notes here, and we're moving on to him talking about using text frames with stories that his students read. And so he gives them these text frames that they can use as they read, and yeah, okay, I'm on board with that idea. A lot of these strategies have to do with giving kids a guide that really focuses their reading, so that instead of just sort of reading the book, he's asking them to identify certain things about the book. So that might be looking for themes, looking for character development, whatever it is that he's decided he wants the students to target. The idea is that they're reading with purpose, which I think we can all agree that's a good idea. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. He suggests text frames for one of them. I'm okay with that. He also talks about having students generate their questions about the text early on, because he says it's really important to catch their lack of comprehension at the beginning of the book, because he equates it to getting lost when you're driving. You know, if you start to get that feeling that you're maybe going in the wrong direction, the sooner you correct and turn around, the easier it is to get to your intended destination. But the longer you keep driving thinking, oh, eventually I'll figure it out, the more lost you get. And I think that's a good metaphor for what it's like when you're really not kind of grasping what you're reading, but you keep going anyway. So he says catch it early and do some work to correct everything as soon as possible. And in this way, he's saying, too, we're teaching students to monitor their own comprehension, which, of course, is a very important strategy, because it's important to tell when you're struggling with something and to know when it's time to take action. And then he gives us some ideas for some tools that we can give them to sort of help correct their comprehension errors or confusion. He talks a lot about inferring things. He uses the idea of the nursery rhyme Humpty Dumpty. He tells his students this nursery rhyme, of course asks who else heard it, and everybody raises their hand, and he said, do you know this is really not about an egg? And everyone's sort of shocked. Huh? What do you mean it's not about an egg? And then he gives several examples of ideas that have been postulated about what the story could be about. Different British rulers, a cannon that once sat on top of a fort in England that fell off the fort and came apart and could not be put back together. So he does that to get students thinking about how we can infer things from what we're reading in the text. And I'm on to the next chapter now when he's talking about this. And he goes from that into this idea of why. Why should we care about inferring and understanding and comprehending classic texts? This was one of the best points I think he has made so far in the book, is he says that classics provide students with the chance to have imaginative rehearsals, that's his imaginative rehearsals, for the world that they will soon inherit. So when we're giving them the opportunity to live inside these stories by reading what happens to these characters and how they develop and the conflicts that they encounter and hopefully resolve, when we give them the opportunity to do that, we're allowing them to rehearse some of the issues that they're going to be dealing with after they're away from sort of the shelter of school. I thought that was great. What a great way to put it. And I think any of us who love to read love the idea that we can still encounter all the drama and the tension and everything we get from reading, but with the safety of being an observer. So we're not really living it, but we can feel all the same emotions that the characters feel. Same way with movies, any kind of storytelling. It really allows us to delve deeper into someone else's life, but still within the safety of our own. And I think that maybe that's a good thing to share with students, is that's why trying to tackle and read these classics is an important thing. He also, again, talks about collaboration. He's big on that. I have some mixed feelings about collaboration, mostly because it's tough to do well. He talks about setting up good groups. I agree with all that. When it works, it's like the best thing in the world. If you can get a really good group of students together and they're engaged and they're excited about what they're talking about, they can learn so much from each other. But brother, getting it there can be really tough. And I think you all know what I mean. You'll put together this group. There's one person doing all the work. One person is totally not paying attention. Maybe one person is even purposefully trying to disrupt the students who are paying attention, and it can just kind of be maddening. I think when it comes to collaboration, I'm on board with what he's saying. We have to teach students how to do it right, and give them opportunities to practice. And once they learn that, they can get to a point where it's really good. But it's like anything else. We really have to be patient and keep going, readjust, replan, because students don't always want to collaborate. Some of them use it as an excuse to do their homework they didn't get done the night before, to, gossip, whatever. They just don't really want to do it. And so if we can give them a structure, one of the things that Gallagher does is he says, if I give them an activity to do and I tell them it's going to take, and I know, and he says, I know it's going to take about 10 minutes to get it done. I tell them they have 8 minutes because I want to put the pressure on them to get it done. If I see that they're working together well and they're actually doing the assignment, I can always extend the time and give them more time. But I want them to immediately feel that pressure so they dig in and get right to work. I thought that was a helpful suggestion and one that I'll probably use. So now we're going to jump to the part, the next chapter, chapter 7, that I really enjoyed, because I want to spend a little bit of time talking about my personal thoughts on this. He devotes a whole chapter to, and I discussed it earlier in the last video, but he digs deeper to metaphorical thinking. And he gives a lot of great strategies for getting students to think metaphorically, which he describes as a higher level thinking. I agree. And he gives a ton of different examples with using different graphic organizers and different exercises to get students engaged. He does mention, and I think this is an excellent point, that sometimes graphic organizers are overused to the point where students see them more as worksheets and that they're not digging as deep into the usefulness of them as they could. So that he cautions teachers, be careful with what kind of graphic organizer you use, how often you use it, and make sure that it's suited to the purpose of your lesson. All good advice. But I wanted to talk a little bit more and extend the idea of metaphorical thinking to analogic thinking. I had to take the MAT back in April. I had my choice. I could take the GRE or the MAT. I chose the MAT for a variety of reasons. I'm not a big fan of standardized testing in general. I'm all for the idea of assessment. I'm not a huge fan of standardized testing. But I decided to take the MAT because I do love analogies. Analogies are really extended metaphors. So basically, when you have an analogy, you take two metaphors and you find the link between them. So it's a little bit of a step above regular metaphorical thinking. And I noticed I had bought an app that every day I would train myself with analogies. And I noticed as I was doing that, of course, like any kind of exercise, whether it's athletic exercise or exercise of the brain, I just started encountering the world that way. And everything I saw, I thought of a metaphor for it. I thought of it analogically. And it got me really, really excited about how it can really extend our thinking beyond the regular connections that we make. So I began to think, I did really well in the MAT, by the way, and I credit that app with it. It did a great job of just training my brain to think that way. And so I came out of the MAT feeling really good about it and thinking, I wonder if that was a graduate school exam, but I wonder, could we get kids thinking analogically, young kids even? So I did a little experiment. I was subbing for a few days in a 4th grade class at Stratton Elementary, which I love those kids at Stratton Elementary. And Sarah, I know you used to work there. Of course, Jen, you're there too. And they were reading Charlotte's Web. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to try a little experiment. I knew the teacher wouldn't mind. I talked to her about it. I put a simple analogy on the board. I think it was like blue is to ocean as green is to, and of course the kids, grass. They knew right away. That wasn't hard. I think I did bark is to dog as meow is to cat. Okay, of course they could understand that. But then I said, let's try it with these characters from Charlotte's Web. So I, for instance, put Charlotte's name up there. Charlotte is to Webb as Wilbur is to, and then we had to talk about, pen, okay. But then when it got really interesting is we started getting into some of the characteristics of the different characters, like Templeton, of course. And the kids really were stretching their thinking. All of a sudden, when we started comparing characteristics, and I was asking them to make connections between one character and another, not only did I see their brains working a little bit harder for them to think, but they genuinely got excited about what we were doing. And it was time to take a break. They were very excited. They said, Miss Kinder, can we do this again when we come back from gym class? Of course. So while they were gone to gym, I put more analogies on the board. They came back, and we extended it beyond Charlotte's Web. And I did some math and logic analogies for them. I tried some sports analogies. We tried a bunch of different things, and I was truly amazed, really, at what these 4th graders were able to come up with. And they were so excited about it, they asked me, would you please take a picture of it and send it to our teacher? So I did. They were really proud of themselves for what, because I told them too, I said, this is higher level thinking. This is stuff that a lot of people don't do till they get to high school. And you guys aren't only doing it, you're doing really well with it. So I would encourage anybody who's thinking about extending that more metaphorical thinking with their students to go ahead and maybe try and take it another step and use analogies, because I think kids are ready for that. So one of the things I thought after that, and I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this is when I hopefully have my own ELA classroom, I would love for my warm-ups most days to be an analogy. And I'd like to come up with analogies that relate directly to what we're reading. So if we're reading The Outsiders, maybe I can come up with an analogy comparing two of the characters in the story. Whatever it might be, I just think it's a great way to prime students' brains for learning and get them to start building connections so that, like Gallagher says, not only are they reading and thinking at a deeper level, but they're really understanding it deeply and carrying that understanding forward as they continue to read the text. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Please leave a comment, please. And tomorrow, Friday, I will post the last of these videos, and hopefully, I really do hope that maybe you'll get a little something out of this that will be helpful to you that you can use in your own classrooms. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye.